Welcome. Laoshi Laurince McElroy here for Water Tiger School of Tai Chi Chuan. Another pre-recorded video, and we're back to Tai Chi this time out. As a matter of fact, we recently realized something. Two things, actually. One we've known for a while. So we've been doing this. Our first YouTube video wasn't in this space. It's more just sort of an interior location because it was the first YouTube video was about, what was it? 3 faults, 3 fears. It was more of sort of a lecture kind of thing, informational. And our first Facebook Live session was a few days later. The first YouTube video was the 19th of March of 2020. The first Facebook Live session, which was in this space, was March 23rd, a Monday. And over the last 19 months, yeah, we have company today. That is, let's see if I can get out of the way. Sasha. Yes, she knows her name. And she is indeed the sweet thing, the cute thing of evil. So anyway, she's sweet and evil, so we also call her Sweevil. Maya might make a guest appearance. But anyway, so we've shot over 100 videos, and it's part of our YouTube channel now. We've transferred all the Facebook Live stuff to the YouTube channel. And just between the last video and this one, we finally straightened the sign. What can I say? I guess Tai Chi is about moving slowly, right? The other realization was that for as large of a part as the Tai Chi walk has played in this video sequence, because we always sort of, whenever we're involved, whenever we do something that involves postures, we do sort of a time compressed drill into what Water Tiger's approach to the Tai Chi walk, Tai Chi stance is. And Sweevil's being vocal this morning too. Yay! Can't lock her out of this space. But anyway, where was I? But we've never done a deep drill on it alone. There's a video out there in the YouTube series that has an introduction to Tai Chi flying, which is using the Tai Chi walk in a non-posture movement that looks like you're flying. And we've done a ball rotation with the Tai Chi walk, but never just the Tai Chi walk. So that's what we're going to shoot today, or what we are shooting today, what you will see today. So we'll do a little brief aerobic warm-up because our main warm-up is a stretch. Be careful of your range of motion. I'll give you some variations, modifications, some ways to power down the aerobic warm-up. So you don't have to hit your joints too hard. There are softer versions of jumping jacks that you can do, things like that. So, but just to get the blood flowing a little bit before we stretch. Just because I don't know where you are, I don't know when you'll be seeing this. You may need to get some blood flowing before you do the stretch. Anyway, let's see, studio news, just FYI, we're still universally masking and keeping physical distance because our county in the state of New York in the United States of America is currently still considered a high-risk area for COVID-19. So we're just taking care of ourselves and the people around us. And that's all I'll say about that. So I'll back up. So you probably know I've done what I can to always do these, mostly, like the stretch videos and the physical training videos, that sort of stuff, all the same style of shirt. But these, try to keep things different, fresh. Just bought a new shirt. Not just so I could wear it in the YouTube videos, but I've always been a fan of Opus. And they just re-released the Penguin Lust t-shirt. So I now am the proud owner of a Penguin Lust t-shirt because I missed out when they were first released decades ago. Another drink to wash that mint out of my mouth. I'm going to start with some bouncing. So you can see I have my shoulder width taped out, just so you can see that it's about width when we do our stance. Yes, there are times in our Tai Chi where we're inside of our width and shoulder width, and times when we're outside of it. The rest of the structure makes sense for those particular times. But the basic Tai Chi stance is shoulder wide, and we measure shoulder width, heel to heel, from side to side, from left to right, obliquely, laterally. Just doing some floppy arm turners and that sort of thing. Okay, we're going to get into the real basic light aerobic warm-up. We're going to start with some marching, and then maybe do a little bit of run. You can stay with the march, right? You make targets, though, when you're marching, and you bring the knees up to the targets. Now, I'm not going to use a timer. I'm just going to go for a little while. So you can do open palms. You really want them pretty high, but, you know, if you have a smaller range of motion, that's fine, right? And if you can't do that and get to your knees, then you're coming into your thighs, or you can do closed fists in both positions. Now the second one's going to look weird. I'm going to turn around, and it's out to the side, so it's sort of wide leg. It changes sort of where that heat from the marching is going. And again, you can be down here, but be honest with yourself, challenge yourself. We always want to warm up before we do any stretching. So many people don't do the aerobic thing, and then they end up injuring themselves. And I'm going to go to a run, just a little light run. We'll only do it one way because I don't want to eat up too much time. So you can do more of a jog. Run, jogging. Or you can get busy with it. Get the arms involved either way, you know, if you're jogging. You can even sort of do a little side-to-side bounce for a little while. Our stretch is a lower body stretch. Side stretch is, I think, its official name. That's what I call it. So it's official for me. Now we're going to go to jacks. And they're really only half jacks. So my feet are going to come up off the ground. So this is a half jack. Right? I'm not doing the full range jumping jack. I'm only going about halfway. And you sort of change where the heat goes with what you do with your elbows. We're doing a lower body stretch, so I'm not that worried about getting chest back and shoulders warmed up. So, you know, this is sort of the standard half jack. These are step jacks. So if you can't or don't want to have that impact, then do the step jack. Or you can mime jumping rope. That's another good light aerobic warm-up. Half jacks with the step version. Just to get the body moving, little oxygen and blood to the muscles. And when I said mime jump rope, this is sort of what I mean. And again, you can take the bounce out of it, keep the foot down, sort of more like we're twirling the wrists and little ballistic kicks, or jump rope for a little while. All right, there you go. I had no idea what that timing was, but got my breath going a little bit, heart rate's up a little bit, so I liked it. So find a width that's going to work for you. I'm going to go to my right first. And, you know, a true side stretch, the toes stay forward, but I need to open my toes out a little bit. Regardless, if you have the toes forward, you want to make sure that your knee is going forward. I'm not pushing the knee out. I turn the toes out a little bit, and then find the correct place for your back foot. So knee over ankle, right? We'll talk about in the Tai Chi stance and walk, knee over ankle is safest, but for the Tai Chi stance, knee over the top of the foot is okay. And now as I'm here in the side stretch, I'm working to keep the perineum down. And again, I'm here relatively deep. My thigh isn't quite parallel. I could probably go deeper. And that back foot, the outside of the instep is on the ground. I'm not rolling to the inside of the instep, or I'm not on the ball of the foot in this stretch. And if you have a smaller range of motion, right, that's all you do is bring in that back foot, come up higher. But this stretch, keeping the knee over the ankle and the same direction as the toes, I'm getting a nice thigh, hamstring, abductor, adductor, maybe even a little bit of the IT band going there. I'm just hanging out for a while. And play with my toes. Yeah, that's about, oh, nope, I gotta open up again. My right knee's my tricky knee these days. And then over to the other side. And just sort of notice the differences from one side to the other. I stumble over the word anomaly. And notice the anomaly from side to side. And again, maybe you were down low on one side. You gotta be up higher on the other side. But again, look, knee, ankle, perpendicular to the ground. Not here, definitely not there. A little bit more, and bring those toes a little bit more forward on this side. Working on getting that perineum to the ground. Not doing this. See that on that back foot, on that right foot. Don't want that space there. Want the pinky side of the foot down. And sometimes you can hang out here for a breath or two, come back over here for a breath or two, and go back and forth, or just do what I've been doing, which is just hanging out. Bringing the toes forward, bringing the feet together. So there you go. A little standard sort of side stretch as a warm-up. So, into our Tai Chi stance and our Tai Chi walk. Right? It's foundational. It's also considered in some circles as moving Tai Chi Qigong. Not all circles, but some. But here I am at my shoulder width. Drop of shoulder should split the heel in that side in half. Not the top, not anywhere on the outside of the delts, but right at that initial decline. If Ant-Man were walking across your shoulder and his shoes were slick, once he started to slide down across the top of your shoulder, that's where that heel should be. Same on this side. I always remember one public class years and years and years ago. In that one week, we introduced, like the first week of the session, we introduced shoulder width, came back to the second week. I said, okay, everybody step out shoulder wide. And somebody in the room like shouted out a distance, let's just say 18 inches. And what they had done was gone home and measured from drop of shoulder to drop of shoulder. Not a bad idea, really. So you can put markers on the floor as to where your shoulder width is. Because some people will think, this is shoulder width, and this is really about hip width. And other people will think, you know, here, I'm a big burly guy, usually. This is my shoulder width. It's like, yeah, no. Just underneath. Little shortcut, you bounce back and forth between the 2 feet with some vigor. 1, it should be easy to do. You don't have to work in the legs too much. And 2, it's easy to hold on to the position. If I'm inside of shoulder width, and notice how little I am inside of shoulder width. one push, and I didn't really sell that at all. I went with it, but I didn't sell it. Right? It's harder to stay in control if I really start to push from side to side. I'm working really hard to stay there. Shoulder width, it's easy. Beyond shoulder width, you can see now I have to work harder to bounce from foot to foot. But at shoulder width, it's relatively easy to do that vigorously without much of an issue in governance or in working of the legs. So, not ideal, but it sort of works. But again, it's heels. So, the back foot in our Tai Chi stance is at around a 45-degree angle. But notice how I just got there. I got there by turning on the heels. So my heels are still shoulder wide from side to side. Right? If I were to point the toes to the 45 by bringing the heels in, now I am not shoulder width. The balls of my feet are at shoulder width, but I am not at shoulder width because my heels are actually even inside of my hip width. Right? And the same thing here. It's not by balls of feet. If I'm pigeon-toed and my heels are off my blue lines in this instance, then I'm not shoulder wide. So that's our target from side to side. And one of our first live sessions, I believe, was walking the rails, and it was just keeping the toes forward and stepping from shoulder width to shoulder width. That helps to train your awareness of what shoulder width is for you. It helps to train your awareness to the relationship between the feet and the earth. Because we need to know, am I really at a 45-degree angle? Is that working for me? Or am I not? Especially on the front foot, it's very important because toes and knees need to point the same direction. And if your toes are out, chances are your knee is still going to press forward because of the forward momentum of the movement, and you put shearing pressure on your knee, and that's no good. So we need to know that the toes and the knee are aligned. Same with the back foot. You need to know that that back knee is pointing more or less the same direction as the back foot. You don't want the knee caving in or pushing out when you're in that foot. So again, with the front leg, in placing it, like I talked about in the side stretch, knee over ankle is safest. So you can see that up and down line between the knee and the floor through the ankle, not out above not beyond the toes, but I can be above sort of the top of the instep a little bit. As I start to get closer to the toes, it's no good. Now, this also depends upon the health of your knee. If you have some knee issues, you probably want to keep it knee over ankle. If your knees are relatively healthy, then you're probably okay over the top of the foot. But you want that knee pointed same direction as the toes. Now, the toes can be in, because notice what happens with the knee. With the toes in, the leg will push the knee in itself. Some people's four stance, they want the feet almost parallel with the knees in because that allows you to close off the groin a little bit quicker and actually closes off the groin just a little bit naturally. For some people, it's more of a fighting four stance than what we would refer to as our standard four stance. Now, this back foot is, again, the outside of the instep is on the ground. But let's break that down. Where was that front foot? Closer to you than closer to the back wall. And Tony Horton on this side, Ralph Macchio on this side. So it's just sort of a comfortable distance. Now, when you're just sort of experimenting with four stance itself, you may be a little bit longer than you'll be able to handle in the Tai Chi walk. Right? But that's, it's okay. Just get used to this stance. Again, around a 45. Some people will insist on a 45. I say put that foot where it needs to be based on your ankle flexibility. Work on your ankle flexibility if you can't do the 45. That being said, I'm not sure where the left ankle is going to be when it's the back foot. I got about 6 screws holding that foot and ankle together. And sometimes I have the flexibility to have it at the 45, sometimes I don't. I just let the foot and the ankle decide that. I've got about 70% of the weight on my front foot. I got about 30% of the weight on the back foot. We can, get a little bit closer to like 60-40. Don't really want to get below 60 in the front leg and above 40 in the back leg. You can go 80-20 in the other direction. Don't really want to push much more beyond 80 in the front leg in the stance itself. This is the Tai Chi stance. This is the end of posture stance. This is in, Tai Chi flying. I'd be here. In Parting Wild Horses Mane or Ward Off or something like that, a forward moving stance. This is where I would be. I'm going to turn sideways for a moment so you can see there's not a great deal of distance front to back from where that heel is to where the toes of that angled foot in back happen to be living. And my shoulder width is not measured from the heel here at an angle to the heel on the back foot. Right? If that were the case, now somebody might say, hey, I'm shoulder wide because there's my right foot or my right shoulder is splitting that heel in half. My left shoulder is splitting that heel in half. I'm shoulder wide, but shoulder wide facing that direction is not shoulder wide facing this direction. So you just sort of play with that, where that foot needs to be for you. Now, another important detail here is that back heel needs to be driving down and back into the earth. Right? Even though I'm lengthening that leg, filling this foot, I'm doing so by pressing and drilling down into that back heel. Yes, the ball of the foot is still in contact with the earth, but it is not the sole nail point. And if I'm on the ball of the foot in this position, I don't have the same stability that I do if I feel that I'm drilling, screwing that heel down in and into the earth. And my hips are square here. So you can see you can't see the front of my abdominals because my right hip is pointed right to the camera. My left hip is pointed right to the back of the space and where the swords are. So I don't have that open hip. I've closed to sit down into the center, which probably feels really weird for you, but that's what we want. That's the stability in this position. If I'm in this position, I'm easily uprooted, especially from this angle or that angle. From here, I can take whatever angle's coming at me and route that energy down and into the earth, so the people end up pushing against the earth instead of pushing against me. Here, if I'm relaxed, I still should theoretically be able to route that push down, but I don't have the structure that does that naturally. I have to get in the way of that to allow for it to happen. Boom. So, and in my world, according to Water Tiger School, this is a left four stance. To get into it, you have to start in the right foot, and the right leg is weighted, so some people would call this a right four stance because you start in the right, place the left foot, and feel the left foot. Again, look, hips square, shoulders square, chest sunk, back rounded, little opening underneath the arms. All the top hip hits. All right, go ahead and shake that up. So again, 70-30 is ideal, 60 somewhere between 70-30 and 60-40, or somewhere between 70-30 and 80-20. Okay, but our goal is 70-30. Our goal is the back foot at a 45, the front foot for us, ideally forward. And setting up the right four stance, again, sort of feeling the differences from side to side. We'll see, feels okay in this position. We'll see what it is when I just move this foot forward a little bit. Comes in a little bit today. Right, again, knee over ankle safest, knee over the top of the foot, okay. Hips square. It's hip to be square. Shoulders out, chest sunk, back rounded. 70-30, 60-40. And for us, a right four stance. Yes, we start with the weight in the left. We step the right foot, but we're moving into the right. So from Water Tiger School perspective, this is a right four stance. If you bounce, you sort of feel if everything's in structure. If you're off structure, you can sort of feel how things are squishier. And by squishier, I don't mean, well, yeah, a little bit, sort of like a wet sponge. But here, things are solid. And you can feel that stability. Here, it's like, yeah, I'm connected to the earth, yes. I'm relaxed, yes. But I don't feel the solidity of the structure that I do in this position. Boom, and again, not here. Here, so the quad is sort of closing a little bit, folding in a little bit like the pages of the book. Go ahead and shake that out. So we weren't in the right four stance quite as long as the left, but there you go. Now there are 5 things, count them, 5, in our Tai Chi walk to get from one side to the other, and some of them are pretty tricky, relatively tricky, but you got to be careful of your knees. And we've experienced a little bit of the 5. This is number 2, because this is the stance, right? And we can sort of start to feel some of the other of the 5 if we rock back. Now, when we rock back, you want to allow the ball of the foot to come with you, because it opens up the hips and the glutes a little bit more. And for another reason, is I get to practice when I roll forward and turn forward to land those toes pointing forward. There can be a tendency for people to have the toes pointed forward, ball of the foot up off the ground, or when they step, the toes are forward. And then when they go to fill the foot, the toes turn out. Not good on the knee, right? The thing is, if your footwork is wrong, your knees will tell you before there's real damage done that something's going wrong. Now, you're moving in ways that you haven't moved before, so yes, things will feel different, odd, worked. But there's a difference between feeling worked and odd and different, and things are starting to tear and strain. You have to learn to identify that. Only you can identify muscle and tendon strain. So I rock back, and if you really listen to the foot, get your Tingjin going, your listening essence going, you can hear that it wants to come with you. Now, some people say when they go forward, Laurince, Laoshi, they say, well, my heel is telling me that it wants to come forward too. Well, yes, it will if you're not focusing on the image of driving down and back. If you have that proper image and intent in that leg and into that heel, it's not going to want to come up off the ground. Boom. And forward. So this is sort of the step. This is 1. This is 2. And it's also moving into that light position is sort of 3 in the 5 count. So all we have is really 4 and 5. 4 is the tricky one, though. Boom. And let's do the other side as a rocking exercise. So we have Tai Chi Stance, hanging out. You can meditate in this position, by the way. We have Tai Chi Rocking. It's a rocking exercise to just sort of get accustomed to how this feels. Testing maybe, depth of stance. Notice I'm not talking about how deep you have to go. That's up to you. As long as this heel is closer to you guys than the right heel is, my left heel is farther away than my right heel, I'm still in 4 stance. So I am still in 4 stance. Slight bend of the knee, not much. Still over ankle, over top of foot. Come back a little bit more. Still in 4 stance. My heels are really close to being the same. I'm about halfway forward on my left heel with my right heel. My right heel is only about that little bit closer to you guys. Right? But the thing with being down here is, 1, it's a longer stance, And 2, if I choose this stance, this is where I have to stay as I'm doing the walking exercise. Because there's no ba, 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 do as you're doing the walk. You want to stay on an even level. I'll shake that out. But again, the same thing. I sort of got caught up in other stuff. Rocking forward, rocking back. Making sure when you rock back that you're not pushing that knee sideways. Right? You're filling that foot, but the knee is still staying pointed the same direction as the back toes. Now look, I want to point this out because some people will say, well, you know, your front knee looks great, Laoshi, and it's just a little bit beyond over the ankle, but when you rock into that back foot, that knee pushes out over your toes. So which is it? Is it supposed to be over the ankle or over the toes? This is not the forward leg. Right? This knee needs to be where it needs to be based on where my stance is and where my flexibility is. This is one of the reasons I might have to have a shorter stance, because the longer the stance, the more I'm going to have to sit down into this back leg, which makes the possibility of maybe pushing that knee too far greater. So I just want to be careful with that. And again, even as I rock, I want to make sure I'm not going down, coming up, going down, coming up, or coming up, going down, coming up, going down. I want to maintain that same distance. Shoulders, these are not the shoulders, these are the hips. Shoulders and hips, the same distance from the ground. So there's your rocking exercise on both sides. So again, it's relatively easy to just sort of step the foot there and then hang out in whatever length of stance. The length of stance is not important. What is important is the width. That's our foundation. I should have pulled from public classes years ago to help communicate the importance of the wide step. A little wall hanging, little, simple printing of step wide in really bold print, and 2 arrows pointing left and right. Which is why, I use words like obliquely and left and right and laterally and side by side. That's what's important, not forward and back, even though this is called fore stance, forward moving stance, F-O-R-E, also known as the catwalk or mountain climbing stance. I can never remember the Chinese. I always get the sitting on leg stance and the mountain climbing stance mixed up, and my Chinese pronunciation is also embarrassing. So anyway, you sort of determine what that stance needs to be for you. So I'm going to start in basic Tai Chi walk, 5 things from one side to the other. It's bath time for Sasha. So settling in. And I have my blue line here. Maybe you don't. Right? Count boards. If you're on a hardwood floor, count boards. Be in this position. How many boards are between your feet? Say there are 5 boards between your feet. Then you know one heel should be on board 0. One board should be on board 6, because you want 5 boards between your feet. Right? 5 boards between the feet does not mean you're on 1 and on 5. That would put 3 boards between your feet. Right? If I do the math right. Boom. So, 1 is the step. I'm stepping with my heel, not the ball of the foot, unless I need to slide the ball and the foot out and then drop the heel down. Right? That's a possible modification. Bouncing, dribbling the foot out, setting the heel down, sliding the foot. It's very hard for me to slide on this exercise mat and then drop the heel down, or glide the foot down. But notice, governance, I'm not falling into the step. Falling into the step will also cause you to step longer than you can probably handle. Boom. That's 1 is the step. And practice that on both sides. 1. Setting that heel down. Also notice where my body orientation is. And if I weren't doing this for the camera, I wouldn't be looking this way. I'd be looking the same direction as my foot. So my toes and my heel are at this angle. My left toes and left heel are at this 45, more or less. I'm a little bit inside the 45, but not much. We'll see if I can maintain that. My shoulders and my hips are going this way. My nose should be pointed the same way as my toes in this position. So I'm making an X, shoulders and hips this way, toes and nose and heel this way. And as I step, I just have to know what my shoulder width is, because I don't want to turn into the step. So many people turn into the step. And then for 2 in the 5 count, all they do is shift the weight forward. And we want the turn to shift the weight forward. So you're playing here again, sort of making sure what that feels like. This is sort of single moment practice. You may also feel, as you settle the weight to take that step, how there's a little internal sort of squeeze to the left that tells the right foot to go out. And the same with the step on the other side, a little settling and squeeze, a little twist, internal twist really, to the right for that left foot to come out. So again, that's 1. 1 is the step. 2, here I am, toes, belly button, knee, toes, pointing to this 45. I'm going to turn forward to feel that foot. Watch the toes. Right now, the way that I step, so my feet are pretty much parallel. So I know I'm turning from the 45 to forward. My foot turns that same amount of degrees from the 45 to the 90 and forward. You can also place the foot in such a way that the toes are forward, and just remember, don't turn the toes as you turn forward. Roll the foot down. Some people also step and the toes will be out, and they'll turn from this 45. Those toes are at the opposite 45, and the two 45s come together. Do what you have to do to get those toes pointed that direction when you feel the foot. So that's 1. 2, 70-30, back heels on the ground. Outside of the instep is on the ground. Hips this way now. Shoulders this way now. Nose, belly button, front toes this way. I've gone from making an X when I took the step, which is really 5 of the 5 count. Not the step, but this position before I step is the ready position. There's 1, here's 2. But now I've gone from that X to a plus sign. I'm going to rock back, allow the ball of the foot to come with me. So I'm not quite as turned far back with the nose, not quite to my toes, because I'm not at 100% of my weight on that foot. Really close, about 98.2 probably, maybe 99, even 99.1. And now what I do while the weight's in the back foot, this is the tricky part. I want to open up my right hip as I also open up my left hip. So there's sort of a 2-directional turn that opens up the quad, where the inner upper thigh comes into contact with the pelvic bowl, like the pages of a book. So that right knee stays facing the right toes. My left leg goes to where my left toes are. But I'm still back weighted here. That's 4 of the 5 count. 5 is coming into that leg. Again, as that leg closes in, you have that settling, a little internal twist, sort of like a washcloth being wrung out without twisting the knee. It's an internal thing. You're not really doing this externally. But settling into that foot, you can sort of feel that it's time to take that right step. That's 1. 2, into the stance. Again, I'm going from the X, boom, to the plus sign. This is the stance. 3 is the rock back to release. Again, I'm bringing my toes, I'm allowing my toes to come back because they want to. And then pivoting. Now I've got one foot at 145, heel on my blue line. The other foot on its blue line, the heel's on its blue line, the ball of the foot, the toes are up in the air. This is 4, and this is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to close because I'm sort of at the end of my picture. And if you've watched any of our videos, you know that we feel, Water Tiger School, that that casual closing should be included. It gives you an opportunity to really move through your whole body, to find that whole body connection. Something happens downstairs, something happens upstairs. So, you know, to exemplify that, I did the turnout. I started to take another step, and I decided I'm not going to get any closer to the camera. So where my hands went to sort of setting in top of that beach ball filled with helium, bringing in this case the back leg as they roll over the top of the ball. My left heel is in the air. As I press down by lengthening, it presses the heel down. And then I settle a little bit back down to bring the hands to the acupuncture point for the Chi and Qigong. I can also go through that same sort of process, and instead of lengthening, shrink. So I'm pressing down to press the heel down, but I'm getting closer to the ground. And then I come up a little bit to bring the hands into the Chi and Qigong. So you have that whole body connection. If part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. The last thing upon which I want to touch is hand positions, right? I did that little pass with my arms just sort of hanging, and then I was, of course, probably talking with my hands, because I always do. You want to choose one of our 5 places for the hands, where they end up when you close. So on the acupuncture point, more or less, for the Chi and Qigong. Some people will say, you know, 2 finger widths below the belly button. Somebody once asked me, well, I don't have a belly button. Where's my dantian? Surgery had taken care of her belly button. So where the elbow folds, where the hand comes into contact with the lower abdominal cavity between sort of your mid belly, which is where the belly button would be, and the pubic bone, but closer to the pubic bone. So it's relatively close to the pubic bone. You can even leave the belly button out of it and just say, you know, a little into the hips. There's the top of the hips, right? And then below the top of the hips. And for Water Tiger School, again, if you haven't heard this before, we don't specify which hand goes next to the body. Find the one that works for you. So for some it might be the left, for some it might be the right, and today it might be the right for you, and tomorrow you might do that and go, you know, oh, that feels better. And then the next day you're back to the right again, right? Listen to what your body wants you to do. So you have that position. You have the behind the back position. Create a hook with one hand, set the other one in. Left over right or right over left. You have the floating hands position. Now, when we say floating hands, we don't mean bending the elbows and bringing the hands up like they were for marching, right? My arms are relaxed, the wrists are activated, and just that activation of the wrists is what causes activation in the arms. And for me, pulls my arms a little bit forward, right? I'm not doing that movement forward. That's the body doing that with the flexation of the wrists. And your palms don't have to be parallel. Sort of like ankles, your toes at the 45, you know, it's an ankle flexibility thing. This is a wrist flexibility thing. If your wrists, you know, if your palms can't float parallel to the floor, work on your wrist flexibility too. Right? You can do all sorts of wrist stretches you can do. Okay, sorry. Boom. Or lightly closed fists, wrists forward. And notice what happens there with my structure. My hands and my arms pull out away from my body. That's not it. It wasn't always that way. I used to go from here to here with no change. But my upper body structure has changed over the last 11 years or so. So there you go. 1 of 5 positions. We just like the hands to be, oh, sorry, the 5th one's on the hips. That's where I normally put mine, because that allows me to talk about, you know, my elbows represent my hips. So you can see my elbows. Maybe you don't, you know, it's harder to see what my hips are doing, but my elbows are angled. Now they're across the room. Moving back to being angled. Now they're moving toward the other angle, and that's where they are when I step. So you have those 5 choices for your walk. We're going to walk away from the camera. We're going to call it a video before this puppy gets too long. I like to start in a Tai Chi-like fashion, so I'm going to bounce the weight I'm going to bounce the weight into the right foot, turning away from the camera threw off what I was doing. I'm going to put my hands on my hips, so choose one of your 5 places. Find the one that works best for you. Each of the 5 places will change your balance because it changes your structure. I'm going to bounce the weight into the left, turn that right foot out to the 45, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Be careful of that back knee. It's not pulling in with me. And 5. 1, 2. And I want to step at such a distance, 3, 4, that as easy as the step was, it's as easy to bring in that leg. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I have to work to bring that leg in, then you have to take a shorter step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, and I'm sort of out of space. I'm going to close. So all sorts of factors sort of determine the details of your stance. Can I be inside of shoulder width? If that's really what you need to protect your knees, to have the movement flow, then a little bit inside of shoulder width is okay. So is a little bit outside of shoulder width. But this is really what we want. The length of the step is important only in that you're able to govern the step and govern the closing of the step. And what I mean by that is that's what I was talking about bringing in that back leg. As easy as it is to place that front foot, it should be as easy to release the back leg and bring it through and forward. So again, if you're in this stance and you've got a strain to bring in the back leg, shorten, not make more narrow, shorten the length of the step. Shorten is, and lengthen is forward and back. Width and narrowness is side to side. So make the choices that work for you. Protect your knees. Tai Chi done properly can actually help reverse previous challenges that you've had with your knees and keep your knees healthy, even as you may develop different things that may impact your joints as you get older. However, if your footwork, your knees and your feet aren't aligned, if your footwork is wrong as you're doing Tai Chi can take healthy knees and screw them up. So you want to get this foundation right. Toes and knees pointing the same direction, getting that idea of knowing how to govern, is the quad closing, is it opening, so you're not rocking back and pushing that knee sideways or pulling it in forward. Knees are not meant to move laterally, right? They're meant to fold and unfold. And you want to fold down into that back leg. You want to unfold while you're folding into the front leg. You want to keep the knees and the toes in orientation. So there you go. That was much longer than I had intended to put this in the shoot. But it seemed important. So there you go. Deep drill into Water Tiger School's Tai Chi Stance. So when we do other, walking exercises and other posture stuff, there will still be our probably short little intro that covers a lot of the points that we have covered in this video, but they'll be very time compressed, and we wanted to spread it out. So yeah, this is a long video. We're almost at 50 minutes. We haven't done that in a long time. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope this made sense. I hope it is assistance to you if you follow the way we do things, but everybody does this stuff differently. I made mention of the, some people call our left four stance their right four stance, et cetera, excuse me. Only one, et cetera. I had a little burp, so I wanted to say et cetera again, but you only need one, et cetera. There, now I've said it multiple times. So thank you. When it's appropriate, please maintain physical distance. Mask up, even if you're vaccinated. Good idea at this point until we can get control of things. And it sort of depends on region to region. Not everybody's in a high or substantial risk geographic location. So look at the details and do what's right to keep you and those around you safe and healthy. And probably be a couple weeks before we do another one, doubt if it's 3 because I think in 3 weeks it's Thanksgiving week. So we'll see. There's things in queue. Not really sure what we have in queue at this time. Um, but there are a couple of things. Finally did myofascial release recently, so I hope you enjoyed hearing me groan in that video. And there's still plenty of topics to address. So thank you again. Take care. Stay safe.